Sean Diddy Combs is currently sitting behind bars as the federal government continues to collect evidence related to his decades of reprehensible crimes. Racketeering, human trafficking, violent assault, bribery are just a few of the countless offenses Diddy is being investigated for. However, crimes at this scale are typically not a one-man operation, so the feds start to question who could have been involved in, assisting with, or covering up his crimes. Jennifer Lopez has been a point of interest as she was in a relationship with the disgraced music mogul from 1999 to 2001, during which she was involved in a nightclub shooting that led to a victim being shot in the face and one man being imprisoned. The details of this case are very messy, and there are multiple strong sources that suggest Diddy was actually the one who fired the gun at the victim's face. But as always, he got away without even a slap on the wrist. Today we're going to deep dive into J-Lo's suspicious involvement with Diddy and unveil all of the details about that fateful night she does not want you to know. J-Lo made it very clear that the first time she met Diddy, she did not like him.
He was larger than life, but at first I didn't like him at all. You know, I didn't. I thought he was like, you know, ick.
Now, it's normal for first impressions to be a little off, but I find it interesting that she used the word ick to describe how she felt meeting him. That implies that she was disgusted or grossed out by him for some reason. However, she goes on to say that it's just because they had different views.
Sean and I were very different that way. You know, I was very like family oriented and a kind of a, you know, the married type. You know, I was actually, when we first worked together in the video, I was married, even though I was going through problems. Nobody knew that, you know what I mean? And I wanted my family, and even though at that time it was not going well, you know what I mean? That was who I was. That's how I was raised.
Despite Jennifer feeling like her and Puffy had different relationship values, 2 years later they would surprisingly end up as a couple. Over the years, J-Lo has been accused of getting in relationships or even marrying men to advance her career. And based on circumstance, that allegation holds a little bit of weight when it comes to Diddy. Firstly, when they got together, J-Lo was gearing up for the release of her debut album, On the 6th, in 1999. But she needed a ton of help. You see, J-Lo was now 30 years old and was trying to prove herself as a musician. She had already proven herself in the industry as a dancer. She danced alongside MC Hammer in an episode of Yo MTV Raps, and then earned a job as a backup dancer for New Kids on the Block's performance at the 1991 American Music Awards. But her big break happened when she got a spot as a member of the Fly Girls, which was a dance group on the widely popular sketch comedy show In Living Color. But just being a dancer was far from the illustrious career she saw herself having. From there, she hired producer Eric Gold as her manager, where she was able to break into acting in Hollywood productions. Her first acting role was on the television show South Central, which was a comedy drama sitcom that aired on Fox in 1994. From there, she got more TV roles in Second Chances and Hotel Malibu, which transitioned to movie roles in Mi Familia, Money Train, and Jack alongside the legendary comedian Robin Williams. However, her breakout film was Selena, a biopic about Selena Quintanilla Perez, the queen of Tejano music, which is a genre blending Mexican music with elements of American country and jazz. Lopez made headlines as the first Latina actress to earn $1 million for a film. Not only did this cement her place in Hollywood, but it also earned her a Golden Globe nomination, making her a draw for future work. And despite her acting career about to take off like a rocket ship, she didn't want to be an actress. She wanted to be a musician. Embracing her Latin roots, Lopez recorded a music demo in Spanish, which sparked a bidding war among record labels, and ultimately she signed with Sony Music Group. The deal with Sony was described as lucrative, as they outbid major labels like Capitol Records and EMI Latin. As Lopez worked on her debut album, Sony launched a major campaign to promote her, leading to her appearance in Diddy's music video for Been Around the World in 1997. At that time, Diddy was an extremely powerful and popular music industry executive. He single-handedly developed and marketed the Notorious B.I.G. to hip-hop superstardom. His label, Bad Boy Entertainment, was an absolute powerhouse, signing some of the most successful artists of the late 90s. He had personally won 2 Grammy Awards in 1998, and he was known to throw some of the most lavish parties where countless powerful figures in the entertainment industry would attend. Being Diddy's girlfriend was quite literally a golden ticket to superstardom, especially in the music industry. It's also convenient convenient that Diddy's label was owned by Epic Records, which was also owned by Sony, the same label that signed Jennifer Lopez. Plus, Diddy was known to introduce and mentor new artists in the industry, such as Mary J. Blige, Usher, and Justin Bieber. And when J-Lo talks about her relationship with Diddy in retrospect, it sounds like she's talking about an old manager rather than an old lover.
He was great. It was almost like I was meant to meet him while I was making my first album. Because he helped me a lot. He was kind of like a mentor in a way, not a mentor, but like guided me. But he had a way of communicating that put it very plainly, like, that sucks, don't do that. Or you need to do this, or you need to do that. Don't forget, and I was smart enough to sponge up the things that were useful.
So when you factor in J-Lo getting the ick when she first met Diddy, to then essentially signing to the same label while she's trying to prove herself in the music industry, it makes it seem like this was not love, this was business. And I got some business with you because today's video is sponsored by Aura, and it's a very important time to be talking about them. This year has seen a number of high-profile data breaches, raising serious concerns about personal information security. Dell, 49 million customers exposed. AT&T, 11.5 million customers impacted over 2 separate breaches. Ticketmaster, over 560 million customer records compromised. But most alarming of all, just a few months ago, National Public Data announced that they had suffered a major breach potentially impacting every American. The incident compromised over 2.9 billion records used for background checks, including critical personal information such as full names, addresses, dates of birth, phone numbers, and most importantly, social security numbers. It has been confirmed that members of the hacker group have released this sensitive information online for free. If you haven't been taking your personal information online seriously, now's the time to change that. You're more vulnerable than ever in today's digital landscape. Thankfully, I feel secure because I use Aura. Aura monitors your personal data, including your social security number, across billions of data points like the dark web and public court records to alert you about potential identity theft. Plus, Aura offers a variety of other features to keep you safe online. I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches, and if you don't want to either, you can go to aura.com/PatrickCC to try 2 weeks for free. Diddy, who at the time went by Puff Daddy or Puffy, was at the peak of his career, and he had just recently got away with multiple fatal encounters that he was involved in. He somehow was not indicted, arrested, or even a suspect in the murders of Tupac and Biggie. This is surprising because, as we broke down in great detail in my Diddy Files video, all roads as to why the 2 rappers died seem to lead to him. Also in 1998, he finally settled a case that he had been battling for 7 years. In 1991, he organized a celebrity charity basketball game where a stampede occurred that took the lives of 9 people. 8 families of the deceased settled wrongful death lawsuits against Mr. Combs in early 1998. Mr. Combs ended up paying around $600,000 of a total of $3 million or so. When you combine these major legal wins with him having more success than ever and dating a buzzing superstar, he was probably feeling untouchable, which meant that anyone who came at him the wrong way would pay the price. And one man who would pay the price would be Steve Stout, a longtime executive with Interscope Records and manager of the rapper Nas. Nas had recently released a single featuring Puffy called Hate Me Now, and when the music video aired on MTV, Puffy was outraged. The video features the crucifixion of Christ with Nasir himself playing the role of Jesus. Diddy was also cast as one of the criminals on a cross beside Nas. Puffy, who is a devout Catholic, had requested his image on the cross be removed from the cut of the video that was to air nationally. Whether it was an honest mistake or done intentionally is unknown, but the fact of the matter is the request was ignored and the full video was broadcast across the country. From there, Diddy went to Steve Stout's office with several bodyguards and allegedly attacked Stout by smashing a bottle of champagne over his head. When Puffy was asked about the situation, this was his response.
Puffy, there's a bad rumor going around that either you or your people were involved with beating up a record executive. What's your side of the story on that?
I heard that rumor too. I don't even really know where it came from.
1 month later, in May of '99, Steve Stout reported the assault to the press. "I'm scared of him. Everybody is afraid of him. He has a dark history." Stout goes on to explain the attack. "He punched me in the face, and then he grabbed the phone and bashed me in the head with it. 1 minute I'm in the middle of a meeting, and the next minute I'm down on the floor and Puffy and his guys are kicking and pounding me. One of them picks up a chair and throws it at me. Then Puffy throws my desk over and they just walk out like nothing happened." Sean Combs was arrested, then bailed out, but the case never went to trial and was settled out of court.
Because there was no lawsuit?
No. There was just a, like you said, payoff.
Do you know how much Steve got paid off?
He got paid off well.
Millions?
You can say that.
Yeah, you could say that?
Yeah.
Puffy seemingly felt he could do whatever he wanted because ultimately he had the money, the power, or the connections to make any problem go away. And that's exactly what many people think happened in the infamous 1999 club shooting, the one where Jennifer Lopez saw the entire thing go down. On December 27th, 1999, Diddy and Jennifer Lopez arrived at Manhattan's famous Club New York in a limousine.
Club New York, 2 days after Christmas, 45th Street, Manhattan, Times Square. Everybody's outside, fur coats, Benzes, baddest bitches, richest niggas, ball players, gangsters, rappers, all in one spot.
Diddy and J-Lo arrived with a small crew, including his chauffeur, Wardell Fenderson, his bodyguard, Anthony Wolf Jones, and his newest bad boy signee, upcoming rapper, Shine.
I get inside the club, pat. I see J-Lo with a security guard walking to the bathroom. I'm like, oh, this lit. J-Lo in the club, this lit. I see Puffy and them niggas over there, him and Shot, them niggas just standing on the couches. Moet bottles, doing it.
As Puffy and his crew attempted to leave, they navigated through the crowded club. As they walked past the bar, they bumped into another crew, led by a man named Matthew Allen, who goes by the street name Scar. Whoever bumped into Scar caused him to spill his drink on his clothes, to which his friend named Marcus turned around in a fit of rage and pushed the first person he saw, which happened to be Diddy.
Puffy says, you know, do you know who I am? And this guy Marcus says, yeah, we got money too. And he takes a wad of cash and he throws it right at his face.
Wow.
And it's 50s and 100s, and it's just raining 50s and 100s, which of course the whole
Right.
bar, you know, it's
Goes crazy.
Yeah, they start diving on them, you know, trying to get the money.
But all I know is I saw when he swung and slapped and money was raining through the sky and falling to the floor. Everybody started trying to run and pick up money, and it was just craziness.
All you hear is, pow, pow, pow. Next thing I know, me and this nigga on the floor looking at each other. We like, oh shit. We like, yo. Cause you know, after one shot, you like this, but then you hear more shot, that's when you fall.
Now, there are conflicting reports as to exactly what happened next, but we do know that several shots were fired from a gun into the club. One of the victims, named Natanya Rubin, recalls being shot.
Like literally walking backwards towards the door, drawing from their hip. I told my friend, I said, oh my God, watch out. As I turned back to look at them, I watched them bow, bow. Both of them fired, and the muzzle flash was like, psh, psh. I watched them both fire their guns. I watched them. I got hit right here, in my nose, in between my eyes, which means I'm facing directly at you. Just like I'm looking at you, that's exactly how I was looking at him. And I watched him shoot me.
Today, Natanya speaks about the situation very calmly, but back when it first happened, she was extremely distraught, seeking justice.
I'm not famous. I don't have a publicity machine. I don't have $1 billion of insurance on my body, or any part of my body for that matter. Does that make me any less valuable?
You have a woman who shot in the face, who still has bullet fragments 2 inches from her spine. She has 2 children. She has her own business. What is she to do now? There's an issue of health coverage. I mean, what do you tell 2 children, 10 and 7? Mommy got shot in the face.
Another victim, 27-year-old Julius Jones, also recalls being shot.
I ain't had no time to duck. It just hit me. I felt, you know, the burn sensation on my shoulder. I just dropped instantly to the floor.
The next thing he remembers after the bullet pierced his shoulder.
People screaming, running for the door to the exit, trying to, you know, get out the way.
After the gunfire stopped, Puffy and J-Lo rushed out of the club and were whisked into a vehicle driven by his chauffeur, Wardell Fenderson. The group fled the chaos in a Lincoln Navigator SUV registered to Puffy's Bad Boy record company, speeding through 11 red lights while the cops pursued them. As the car was speeding away from the police, a bystander witnessed somebody throw a gun outside of the passenger side of the car. The witness told investigators that he saw a woman's hand fling a gun from the chauffeur-driven Lincoln Navigator.
Minding his own business, and he says the Lincoln Navigator is driving by. According to him, he sees a light-skinned, slender arm throw this loaded weapon out the window. And that lands on his car.
If this was true, it implicates Jennifer Lopez, as that's likely the person they are describing, for discarding a piece of evidence. The Navigator was eventually pulled over by police, and authorities found another firearm with 3 spent cases in the front seat. Nobody took credit for the gun. Therefore, all 4 of them, J-Lo, Diddy, the driver, and the bodyguard, were arrested and taken to the Midtown North precinct for questioning. We would later find out that the weapon had been reported stolen in Georgia. None of the 4 occupants of the car had a license for the gun. Back at the nightclub, Shine was taken away in handcuffs because he also was in possession of a firearm with 3 spent cases. Scar and his crew were not arrested because they fled the scene. While Diddy and his crew were in the holding cell, allegedly he attempted to bribe his driver, Wardell Fenderson. "I'm Puff Daddy, you know?" Fenderson quoted Combs as saying in hushed tones, "I can't take this gun rap. I'll give you $50,000. According to Fenderson, Shine chimed in, "Listen dog, you don't have a record. You'll get probation. We can't let P take the gun. You'll be a part of the family." Combs then offered him a diamond pinky ring, a gift from J-Lo, as collateral for the promised $50,000. The driver initially did tell police that the gun was his, but he later recanted that statement. There was also a tapped phone call where they suspect Puff had been trying to bribe the driver once again.
And I just want to make you feel like comfortable, you know what I'm saying? Make your family feel comfortable.
Everyone involved in the situation bailed out of jail, and as you can imagine, the media was in a frenzy. Puffy quickly lawyered up, hiring a dream team of 2 top defense attorneys, Johnny Cochran and Benjamin Braffman. They held a press conference, which was basically just an official way for Puffy to put out an official statement to proclaim his innocence.
On Sunday evening, I went to Club New York. And under no circumstances whatsoever that I have anything to do with a shooting.
From there, his lawyer proceeded to take questions and attempt to clarify what had happened that night.
Whatever happened at the club had nothing to do with him. And when he went outside and he was whisked into a car in the back of the car with Miss Lopez, the gun was found in the front where 2 other people were. If you or I went into a car and sat in the back seat and a gun was found in the front, our cases would be dismissed. The reason Mr. Combs' case was not dismissed is a simple one, because every time someone lies, you all take it as true.
His lawyer is trying to convince the press that the gun being in the front seat is this obvious matter of fact that proves Diddy's innocence, when in reality, Diddy's company owned the car, and they drove for 11 New York City blocks, speeding away from the cops, which is more than enough time for somebody to take the gun from the back seat and move it to the front seat. But we're going to deep dive into all the details of the case in a minute. Right before the trial, the media was more focused on Jennifer Lopez, since Diddy being involved in a shooting wasn't really all that surprising. Headlines emerged such as her high-risk romance and her night in hell. Whether or not she had been involved in or knew exactly what happened was a juicy story, and everyone wanted answers, which is why many people believe that she wore a specifically revealing dress at the 2000s Grammy Awards to take attention off the incident. This award show was less than 2 months after the shooting, and headlines switched from talking about that to talking about this skimpy garment. In fact, her Grammys dress is the reason why Google Images exists today. Google's executive chairman, Eric Schmidt, said Google users wanted more than just text. This first became apparent after the 2000s Grammy Awards, where Jennifer Lopez wore a green dress that, well, caught the world's attention. At the time, it was the most popular search query we had ever seen, but we had no surefire way of getting users exactly what they wanted. J-Lo wearing that dress. Google image search was born. As we got closer to the trial, David Letterman interviewed Jennifer Lopez on Late Night and asked her about the recent trouble she had got in with Diddy. He was referring to the nightclub shooting, and J-Lo made it very clear that she did not want to talk.
Trouble now. There's some trouble now. I don't think I need to tell people, but there's trouble now. And we don't need to go into it, do we? No. And you can't really say anything about it, can you? No, so I really shouldn't have even brought it up. I don't know why I brought it up. But there is some trouble now. Now, has the trouble affected the relationship?
No.
The trial for the nightclub shooting case began with jury selection on January 17, 2001, followed by opening arguments on January 29, 2001. Interestingly enough, we found this New York Post article that claims that J-Lo testified in front of 23 grand jurors in Manhattan Supreme Court, saying, "Look, I danced with him. I had my arms around him. No gun." But I found countless other sources that report that she never testified, but she would be willing to if she had to. I have told Sean that if he and his lawyers change their minds and require me to testify, I will be there immediately to tell the truth. Another interesting point in this case is that Shine got separate attorneys than Puffy. Puff had his superstar legal team, but Shine, who was just 20 years old with no substantial money, was actually appointed different lawyers. And those two lawyers had previously worked for Diddy. And this is weird because Puff and Shine are essentially defending themselves for the exact same crime, and Shine is signed to Diddy's label, so why would they have separate legal teams? Diddy's defense was simple. He denied everything. He didn't have a gun, he didn't get into an altercation, he didn't get slapped with a stack of money, he didn't shoot a gun, and he did not try to hide a gun after the fact. Detectives who interviewed 350 people that witnessed the events in the nightclub almost unanimously agree that Diddy and Shine did fire a weapon.
The other witnesses that did describe what happened, say that Sean Combs was the one who fired, and shot these people along with Shine.
Additionally, there were metal detectors that everyone in the club were required to go through, which would mean that the intended targets of the bullets, Scar and his crew, would not have had guns on them.
The only people who didn't go through the metal detectors is Puffy and J-Lo.
Right.
And I think everyone else went through.
Okay. They were the only ones that had guns.
Also, if you think about it, if Scar and his crew had guns on them, this situation would have probably been a lot worse because they likely would have started shooting back, but instead they fled the scene. And speaking of Scar, conveniently, he was nowhere to be found in the trial, and that's because he was allegedly threatened to disappear.
And he said, he goes, look, they were after me, they were trying to, get me to disappear anyway, and they were going to pay me. At one point, he was offered $100,000 to just disappear. This is according to him. They had a meeting set to go get this money. He was going to bring some people with him for his safety, so he felt fairly comfortable. But he got a call from someone in Puffy's inner circle who he knew from his neighborhood, wherever he knew him, I forget exactly, but who told him, don't go to pick up that money. You will never see it, and that'll be it for you. They're going to kill you.
Despite all of the evidence that seemingly was stacked up against Puffy, one witness was somehow able to exonerate him entirely. The witness, Charisse Myers, was a bouncer at the club. She claimed that when shots rang out, she fell on top of Puffy during the shooting and that she did not feel a gun on him. This single testimony somehow negated all of the witnesses, all of the testimonies and detective reports and the metal detectors and everything that made Puffy look guilty. How? We don't know. Additionally, Charisse testified that Shine was the one who shot the gun, and for some reason, Shine's lawyers admitted that he shot the gun, but in self-defense. So Puffy's defense strategy was deny everything, and Shine's defense strategy was, oh yeah, I did shoot the gun, but I was defending myself. It was at this point that Shine realized his attorneys, which were appointed to him by Puffy, were not acting in his best interest.
But at the point where, he calling the witnesses, to do me dirty, then you understand that, well, man, if these guys is working for him, because I went to the judge like 3 times complaining about inefficiency with my lawyers, because they was just dumbing out. Like, witnesses be on the stand, they would ask them 2 questions that didn't make sense and then sit down. It's obvious that they was selling me, you understand, in order to appease him. There was a dual loyalty there.
All fingers were pointed at Puff. But because of Sharice Meyer's testimony and Shine's lawyers essentially backing up her story, the jury felt this case was solved, that Shine was guilty and Puffy was innocent. Sean Combs was acquitted of all charges, and Shine was found guilty of 5 other charges, including assault in the first degree, reckless endangerment, and criminal possession of a weapon. Justice Charles Solomon sentenced Barrow to 10 years for first-degree assault. I also find it interesting that Shine's lawyers, who literally just lost their case and know their client is going to jail, walk up to the press stand smiling, looking like they won.
What about Shine? His spirits, he's of course disappointed with.
There's just something odd about how he says, "What about Shine?" while smiling. It's like, what do you mean, what about Shine? You just lost the case. He's going to jail. Why are you smiling? And then he looks at his partner, and his partner is a lot more serious, and he immediately tucks that smile away and acts very serious. It's almost like he was smiling because the job actually was done the right way. But hey, what do I know? There are theories that Puffy paid the jurors, or maybe he bribed the judge, or he paid Sharice Myers to strengthen his case, but none of them really have much substantial evidence. However, it does kind of seem that Shine was the fall guy. Shine said that Diddy admitted this many years later.
You know, Puff apologized. He did apologize to me for that, you know, when we met in Paris. And, you know, he did say, you know, he could have handled it better, but he was under a lot of pressure, you know, from the lawyers, you know, to throw me under the bus. And that's exactly what, you know, Benjamin Brofman and Johnny Cochran and the entire Dream Team, that was their position.
But Diddy has always denied that.
I did not force anybody or tell anybody to say anything that would damage or hurt Shine's case. I just wouldn't do that. That would not be my intent whatsoever.
Now, there is no doubt that Shine did commit a horrible crime. Like, you can't just fire a gun into a club where there's tons of people around. But it really seems like he was not the only one who should have been found guilty. And throughout the years, there was only one person who never shared their side of the story, and that was Jennifer Lopez. J-Lo was right there the entire night. She arrived with Puffy, she was in the club with him, she was right there when they had the scuffle, she was in the getaway vehicle where a gun was discarded, and she was even in the holding cell where there was allegedly a bribe that happened. She also continued to date Puffy before and during the trial. If anyone knows exactly how this all went down, it's her. But after this trial concluded, their relationship did not last much longer. In an interview with Rolling Stone, J-Lo recalls, "He said to me many times, 'I want a divorce.' Which, keep in mind, they were never married. I'll be away so much, or he can't get away. Whatever. But he'll say, 'So where do I send the papers?' Lopez affirms that all is well, but they have no plans to marry. She goes on to detail their vastly different lifestyle preferences. Puff loves to go out, she says. He's been a going out to clubs person all his life, doing his thing. I've always been a homebody, so we switch off what we do when we're together. I don't really like to talk about us because I don't feel like it's anybody's business. It's a separate thing. He's an artist, I'm an artist, we have 2 separate careers. There are some things you have to keep sacred and private," she says quietly, breaking eye contact as she does whenever Puffy is brought up in a non-professional capacity. That's such an interesting detail. Like, why did the writer write that specifically? She always breaks eye contact. They knew something. In this business, your soul is so public and open and out there for everybody. There is no privacy. There really isn't. At the end of the day, you really have to fight to keep certain things sacred so that they survive. And sometimes they don't. And that's life, but you try. Most people look at J-Lo's response as completely normal. Even celebrities deserve privacy, and it's not weird to think they don't want to spill out every single detail about their personal lives. However, due to the suspicious acquittal of Diddy in the shooting and the nature of his recent RICO charges, some look at her demand for privacy as a strategic way to separate herself from his sins. Was she actually a homebody? I mean, we do have plenty of photos of her at the Diddy parties, especially some where she appears to be cozied up in the bed with other stars, perhaps a prelude to the freak-offs.
That I, at that time, was cared very deeply for Sean, and you know, we just didn't have the same kind of ideals about life and family and stuff like that, and just wasn't a good relationship for me. It didn't have so much to do with him as it had to do with me at the time. I had to learn to care about myself a little bit more and put up certain boundaries of what I would accept and wouldn't accept, because really he was just being himself. He wasn't doing anything wrong, and he felt like he loved me very much, and I know he did, and I felt like the same way. So if I was unhappy in some way, then I was the one who had to do something. Not him. He was doing everything he wanted to do.
Just a few months after the trial, the couple quietly went their separate ways. The relationship only lasted 18 months. But Diddy says almost nothing but positive things about Jennifer. In a 2001 interview, he said that he was still in love with his ex, Kim Porter.
I got caught up in the hype a little bit. You know, Jennifer, she's definitely a bad chick, but I was still in love with Kim. You know what I'm saying? So I couldn't marry Jennifer, but I was still in love with Kim.
A couple years later, J-Lo revealed that their breakup was actually because Puffy had cheated on her. It was the first time I was with someone who wasn't faithful, J-Lo tells Vibe magazine. I was in this relationship with Puff where I was totally crying, crazy, and going nuts. It really took my whole life in a tailspin. I never caught him, but I just knew. He'd say he was going to a club for a couple of hours and then never come back that night. Puffy's longtime bodyguard, Gene Deal, also recalls a time where he cheated on J-Lo immediately after she threw him a massive party for his birthday.
Then we came back, what's his name? Slam had set it up because Jennifer went upstairs. And Puff said, yo, Gene, watch the door. Don't let nobody come through the door. And I wanted to say it was Korean, but I'm not sure it was her. And while Jennifer was upstairs, he was down there getting a fellatio from her.
Did she ever find out?
She know now.
Now, this is not as popular of a theory because it's not that sexy, but there is a chance that Diddy was an entirely different person towards J-Lo. If you watch my Diddy Files video, then you know that when it comes to his personal relationships, he's quite literally a monster. I mean, there's video of him beating his girlfriend. But if we speculate that his relationship with J-Lo was just a business transaction, then maybe he treated her better than his other partners.
When you was around Diddy, did you ever see him put his hands on Jennifer Lopez?
Well, he didn't do any violence to Mrs. J-Lo. That's why I didn't see any violence. It's a different breed, bruh. He wasn't gonna risk himself like that. And plus, a lot of people didn't like him. J-Lo mother didn't like him. Benny Medina didn't like him. If he would have ever touched Miss Lopez in any kind of aggressive way, she would have said something, man, listen to me. The whole Bronx would have been on Puff. It's a different class. You know, he knew that she was an actress, she was a singer. He did put her on a pedestal, but he still was seeing Kim. So I don't think that she had those experiences. People only do what you let them do. If he would have did that to her, he would only had one time. You see, when he ran out the club and left her after that shooting at China, she ain't want to be with him no more.
It seems like J-Lo has a great deal of deniability as far as her involvement and or knowledge of Diddy's crimes. He could have been a totally different person towards her, or he was cheating on her, which we can assume would mean that he was constantly lying to her. Or maybe the relationship was strictly business and it was all fake, so they didn't even know each other that well. Or all of the above. Those who still look at J-Lo suspiciously believe that she knew about his sins and purposely turned a blind eye since he was helping her music career immensely, or that she was actually involved in the cover-up of the nightclub shooting, or at the very least, she knows the real story and the reason she is not speaking out against him today is because she is also guilty. I mean, this clip of her basically wishing death on Diddy is very telling.
You look in the ocean, you see two people floating.
Oh, shit.
You can only pull up one because that's how much room you have on your raft. You look in the ocean, you see Ben Affleck, and you see Diddy.
I also find this clip of J-Lo's mom in 2015 very interesting.
I was telling you that I could always see you getting back with Puffy in a little way.
I remember you saying
yes.
that. Yes.
Or in my mind.
Look at.
Or in my mind.
I don't think I've ever seen a more seriously concerned face. Her mom is not playing around. She demanded that J-Lo stop talking. The reason why all this matters is because it's very possible that today J-Lo is in contact with federal investigators about the 1999 club shooting. She could plead the fifth, she could say that she doesn't remember, or she could testify against him and actually help put him in jail. And since Diddy is currently being charged with RICO, the nightclub shooting can still be added to his charges as long as they can prove that this incident is a part of a pattern of repetitive criminal behavior.
In the aftermath of that, they have witnesses that say he bragged about intimidating witnesses, paying off jurors. Certainly when you have that kind of stuff, if you go back and you find that juror that was paid off, or jurors, multiple, that may have been paid off, certainly that gives you the impetus to kind of come forward and refresh those charges on a federal case.
So now it's J-Lo's move. Is she going to stay silent, plead the fifth, and pretend like she doesn't remember anything? Or will she be a part of the inevitable takedown and imprisonment of Sean Diddy Combs? I guess we'll have to wait and see.